What really happened the day Elvis Presley was laid to rest? Behind the sea of flowers and mourning fans, three haunting moments unfolded. So unsettling, so deeply personal, that his own family rarely speaks of them. From quiet sobs that turned into shocking decisions, to eerie occurrences that defied explanation, the air around Graceland felt heavy with more than just grief. And just when you think you've heard it all, the final twist will leave you questioning everything. Stay with us. This is a side of Elvis' farewell that's never been told like this before. It was a sweltering August day in Memphis, the kind that makes the air feel thick and heavy with something more than just heat. Vernon Presley, already a man who'd buried his beloved wife years earlier, now stood at the brink of another heartbreak, this time, his son. Grief clung to him like a second skin. He wasn't the same man who'd once smiled proudly next to Elvis on stage, or signed autographs for fans at the gates of Graceland. On this day, he was simply a father, tired, hollow, and shattered. The original plan was simple, maybe even too simple. Allow Elvis's fans just 2 hours to walk through the front doors of Graceland, file past the casket, and say their goodbyes. It was meant to be orderly, controlled, short, but as the gates opened and the line of mourners spilled down the streets like a river of sorrow, it was clear that no schedule could contain this kind of heartbreak. Thousands came, some in tears, some holding flowers, others barely holding themselves together. But they came and they waited. The heat rose, tempers flared, security grew anxious. When Vernon was told the line was getting longer, not shorter, and that the sun was becoming dangerous, he was urged to shut it all down. Graceland's staff and Elvis's inner circle were worried it would become chaos. But Vernon, eyes glassy and voice trembling, made a decision that stunned even the most seasoned among them. He shook his head slowly and said, "Elvis would have wanted us to let as many fans come through as possible, for as long as we possibly could, just to have one last look at my boy." And with that, the man who had just lost everything opened the door even wider. For the next hour, as the sun dipped lower and the grief grew heavier, Vernon sat with tear-stained cheeks, barely able to hold himself upright, while fans filed past in silent reverence. He didn't say much, but he didn't need to. His broken posture, the hollow stare, the cracked voice, it all said what words couldn't. A father, broken and selfless, opening his home to thousands during the worst day of his life. And somewhere in that pain, in that unthinkable loss, he gave the world one final, unforgettable act of love. Just when the weight of the day seemed unbearable, the mood inside Graceland shifted, not with tears, but with paperwork. Behind closed doors and hushed voices, something unsettling was unfolding. While the world outside mourned, inside, business crept in. It wasn't a fan's final letter or a tribute from a friend. It was legal documents, contracts, brought in by none other than Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's longtime manager, and a man whose name still stirs controversy to this day. With the morning sun barely clearing the treetops, Colonel Parker arrived not to console or to grieve, but with a briefcase and a mission. He approached Vernon Presley with a stack of merchandise agreements, requesting signatures that would hand over full control of Elvis' name and legacy, at least the commercial side of it. The ink hadn't dried on the newspapers announcing Elvis' death, yet here was Parker, asking a grieving father to sign away what little remained of his son's empire. Vernon was in no condition to make decisions, let alone legal ones. He was a shell of a man, exhausted, mourning, disoriented. His eyes were red, his voice barely a whisper, his thoughts anywhere but on business deals. And yet, overwhelmed and emotionally frail, he picked up the pen. Was it out of trust, confusion, pressure? That moment, more than any other, remains murky. And in that haze, one can't help but wonder, was this an act of protection or manipulation? What do you think? Was Colonel Parker acting out of loyalty to safeguard Elvis's legacy? Or was he securing his own stake before the dust could settle? Tell us in the comments. Do you believe Parker truly had Elvis's best interest at heart? Or did something far more calculating take place inside Graceland that day? As the sun dipped low and shadows stretched across the grounds of Graceland, something strange began to stir. something that couldn't be explained away by heat or grief. Just as Elvis' casket was being carried to the waiting hearse, a massive tree branch, thick, healthy, and fully intact, suddenly snapped and came crashing to the ground. It wasn't brittle. There was no wind. It just fell. Gasps rippled through the crowd, but no one had answers. For some, it was just coincidence. For others, it was the first sign that the day held more than sorrow. It held something unearthly. Nancy, one of the longtime maids and cooks at Graceland, still remembers the chill that ran down her spine that week. In hushed tones, she later shared what she'd experienced, not just on the day of the funeral, but from the moment she began working there. She spoke of soft footsteps echoing down empty hallways, of faint voices whispering in rooms that were supposed to be silent. She would call out, expecting someone to answer. No one ever did. The most chilling moment, the laundry room door downstairs slamming shut with such force that it rattled the walls when no one else was around. Shaken, Nancy climbed the stairs to find Aunt Delta calmly reading a magazine in the jungle room. Before Nancy could say a word, Delta looked up and asked, "Did you hear that?" Nancy nodded. "Did anyone come upstairs?" Silence. No one had. And no one was downstairs either. For two women rooted in reason and routine, that quiet exchange confirmed what they both felt but hadn't yet voiced. Something else was in the house that day. Maybe it was grief playing tricks on tired minds. Maybe it was the spirit of Gladys, watching over her son one last time. Or maybe, just maybe, Graceland held secrets that not even the Presley family could explain. Some believe the energy was spiritual, a final farewell from those long gone. Others scoff and chalk it up to overactive imaginations fueled by sorrow. But tell us, what do you think? Was it the spirit of Gladys watching over Elvis? Or something even more mysterious? It happened in a part of the house most fans never see. A quiet, tucked-away basement space where Elvis used to unwind in his TV room. Nancy had gone down there alone, the house unusually still, the mood already heavy from the events of the day. She was simply doing what she always did, tidying up, dusting the bar, emptying a few ashtrays left untouched. Then, without warning, the heavy laundry room door behind her slammed shut with a force that shook the walls. Not creaked, not drifted, slammed. It was violent, deliberate. The sound echoed through the basement like a gunshot in a chapel, snapping her upright with heart-pounding dread. Panicked but composed, she flipped on the light and slowly opened the door. Nothing. No footsteps, no voices. Just stillness so complete it almost rang in her ears. She rushed upstairs only to find Aunt Delta seated exactly where she'd left her, calm, collected, and alone. "Did you hear that?" Nancy asked. Delta nodded slowly. "Did anyone come upstairs?" Silence again. Just two women in an empty house, unable to explain what they'd just experienced. And in that stillness, one question remained. What or who had slammed that door? There are farewells that linger long after the crowd disperses, echoes of emotion too powerful to fade. The day the world said goodbye to Elvis Presley wasn't just about mourning a legend. It was drenched in something deeper. A spiritual weight seemed to settle over Graceland, pressing into every corner of the house and grounds. It was as if the universe paused, holding its breath. From a father's heartbreak that opened the doors wider than anyone expected, to the strange events that left even the most grounded souls grasping for explanations, there was an undeniable energy in the air, one that couldn't be written off as mere coincidence. And when you piece them together, Vernon's unshakable resolve, the shadowy decisions unfolding behind closed doors, and the mysterious moments that rattled the very foundation of the mansion, you begin to see something more than just a funeral. These weren't isolated stories. They were threads in a hidden tapestry, stitched together by grief, loyalty, and something that defies understanding. A chapter of Graceland history too complex, too emotionally raw to be neatly packaged, and perhaps too unsettling for the Presley family to ever fully revisit. If these stories moved you, stirred something deep, or simply left you with questions that still linger, don't let the conversation end here. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss another untold chapter from Elvis' life and legacy. Like this video if you felt the emotion, the mystery, or the weight of what really happened. And most importantly, drop a comment below. What do you believe about that day? Was it pure heartbreak, spiritual energy, or something else entirely? We want to hear your thoughts. Let's keep the memory and the mystery alive together.